Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you, Diana. I really appreciate it. So here we are. We're going to talk about dating in the next year and also beyond. So, Sonia, perhaps we can start, with you introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Oblitey, Senior Director of Global Marketing for OKCupid. I've been with the brand for a little over 3 years now, and my remit is really to promote the brand internationally. So, like I like to say, like spread love across the world.
Like that.
Yeah,
I love that. It's a great mission.
it's fun. It's fun.
Fantastic. And my name is Douglas Cajas. I am working for RTL AdAlliance, and we serve as the RTL Group's international media insights and solutions for the group. And essentially, we're a one-stop shop for total video solutions in Europe. So we're really excited to be here and to have an opportunity to chat with you, Sonia. So I'd love to maybe if you could tell us a little bit about OKCupid and what brought you to OKCupid before we start getting into the outlook and the prognosis. Would love to hear that first.
Yeah. So a little about OKCupid. So OKCupid, we're one of a legacy dating app. So we've been around for almost 20 years. We're part of the Match Group Corporation. So Match Group owns a major, great portfolio of brands from Tinder to Hinge to Plenty of Fish, BLK, Chispa, Match, a lot of the brands that everybody knows. So with OKCupid, where I really pride myself with OKCupid is that we were the first dating app to expand our gender and orientation options with 22 genders and 22 orientations. And we also have over 60 identifiers for LGBTQ. And we really want to make the experience for everybody to find what they're looking for, regardless of your gender, your race, or however you identify. How I joined OKCupid is interesting. So my background is actually beauty marketing. So all my career I've been marketing, skincare, fragrance, and during my time at Walgreens Boots Alliance, I was working with Melissa Hobley, who became the CMO of OKCupid, who's now the CMO of Tinder. But at the time, with OKCupid, she was the first CMO, and she is really the one who I would say like reinvigorated the brand with some really great brand campaigns. And then there was opportunity to expand international. And then she recruited me because we worked together at Walgreens. And it's been a great ride so far. This is one of the most interesting categories to market, I have to say. It's definitely different than marketing skincare.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, tell us a little bit, maybe, would love to hear how do you position yourself, within the dating, ecosystem? You've already, in part help us, understand that, but there's so many dating apps, right? What makes OKCupid from a consumer standpoint, so unique?
Yeah, I think, what makes us unique is that we have lots and lots of questions. And we have this amazing algorithm that like powers all these questions, and it gives you a percent score when you match with somebody. And we also allow you to really share a lot about yourself. So there's more than just looking at a picture and scanning left or swiping left and right. So that's how we really position ourselves, is through our questions. And our questions are timely. So whatever's going on in the ecosystem, whether it's pro rights or elections or just anything, it could be from Oscars to football to anything that people might find passion or might like have a conversation about or conversation starters about. We make sure that we constantly update the product to keep things relevant and have people are able to break the surface a little bit, by getting to know each other a little more. And then, and from that's a product done. But I think from our creative and brand campaigns, they're very provocative, very shocking. Not sure if you've been in the New York subway and seen some of the OKCupid campaigns, but we really want to shock our audience in a way that allows our our consumer to know that we are for everybody. So there's always a little twist in the creative. So, like just like the DTF campaign, and the DTF acronym down to, but for us, it was down to find. And then it just, it ties in the product, but also gives you that little like tongue in cheek, because we know we want us, that's how we really stand out. It's just not your everyday beautiful man or beautiful woman, just, it's everybody and anybody.
I love that. I'd love to hear, maybe you can share, with the audience, some of let's say one of the campaigns that you're most proud of that you've launched, and tell us why.
I am most proud of my recent campaign that we launched in Israel. We launched it last April, and the campaign, so Israel is one of our top markets for OKCupid. The brand is positioned in Israel as a serious, intense dating app because the culture, they tend to date more for marriage. But this campaign, we featured people of all types of orientations. So we had gays, lesbians, a very famous transgender actress was featured in our campaign. And the campaign was centered around the values of what people care about in the market. And that was from our insights and our data. So there was one of the vignettes in the campaign that just was two lesbians spanning the globe to show that they believe in climate change, and then there was another vignette in Israel where the campaign, and it was so artistic and so creative. But I wish I could show you the picture, but you can Google it. But it was just about, like, these are the type of relationships you can find in OkCupid. So one, and you kind of have to know Hebrew a little bit, and I'm still polishing up my Hebrew, but there was one kind of this relationship where they call it chatterbox. So it was a gay couple holding one telephone as they slept, just to show like they're always talking with each other. Yeah. But what I appreciated was we're showing people in a market that's highly relationship intense, the different types of relationships that you can discover on OkCupid, but we're doing it in a really, really shocking way. We used a lot of young influencers and models. And I was just very proud to see the diversity of the campaign. It was all over television, and we had some 6-second TV spots as well. But it just continued to position us as this dating app that is for everybody, no matter what country you're in, or even the culture that you're in. It still shows that you will find somebody for you.
That's fantastic. How do you go about, measuring these, highly insightful and creative and provocative campaigns?
Various ways of measurement. I think, like, for me, my measurement, obviously you look at like your registrations and your downloads, and if you're targeting women, how many women are downloading your app, and like, the retention, how long do we retain them. But for me, I also look at success stories. When we get a email or a wedding invitation just saying like, we met on this app and, you changed our life, or a person who was transgender and was scared or wasn't able to meet somebody and met somebody on our app because they were able to, feel accepted and appreciated. That's how I measure the success outside of your typical KPIs. Of course, we all have them, and we all need to pay attention to them, of course, in your ROIs. But for me, it's really like just hearing and seeing the outcomes of these matches.
It's, you and I were talking about yesterday how, it attracts, OkCupid tends to attract somebody who is, different kinds of relationships, but also those who are intent on finding the right relationship for them. And a lot of that has to do with this somewhat, let's call it very thorough a questionnaire that, that every party has to fill out. And how important it is to be able to match individuals on, so many aspects, and how fundamentally there are a lot of, we were just saying, how, opposites may in fact attract, but how it's still quite important that there are, for many people, there are certain, values and beliefs that they want their partner to share.
Exactly. And that's one of the positives about online dating, is that you can really have the opportunity to know where your match stands on certain topics and issues. So for instance, OKCupid, we launched badges. So for Black Lives Matter, we had a Black Lives Matter badge that you could attach to your profile. Per rights, for instance, it's per rights badge that you can attach to your profile. So, and even if you're a smoker, non-smoker, just things that you can find out before you go on your first date. And if it's a deal breaker, you'll know beforehand, So I think that's important, especially when it comes to this online world, to really get to know who, what your match values, outside of just their looks.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, that makes for ultimately for, I think, longer lasting relationships from the very beginning, because this may be things that end up being, deal breakers that we may embrace perhaps in the beginning, but in the end, they end up actually, kind of gnawing at us a little bit.
Exactly. You don't want to be surprised by, like I said, if you don't smoke and you get there and they're like puffing away, and you're like, oh my gosh, you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed. No, the fewer surprises, the better, right? And
I would say, yeah.
In that sense. Okay. Very, very cool. I'd love to hear. So how have you guys been building, the brand, and also at the end of the day, also helping to drive, some of the at the end of the day, the downloads and driving subscriptions and use. I'd love to, can you kind of tell us how you approach that the funnel in order to make really OKCupid, be the leading player that it is?
Yeah. It's interesting about the funnel because there's different parts of the funnel that I look at. Because for a dating app, like we were saying before, you have to be able to explain why is this dating app different than the next one.
Yes.
Right. So when you have the big top of the funnel, you might not have a lot of opportunity to do that if it's just a billboard.
Right.
So like we have to kind of think about, okay, like if I am going to do a big out-of-home campaign, what is that message that we want to get out there? How do we get them to go lower in the funnel, right? So I think, when I looked at the opportunities, especially with OKCupid, like what do we have questions. We have lots of questions and we're going to match you. But we also want you to know that you don't just have to necessarily have a date. You can have a friendship. Like there's just so much more on the app that you can do. You don't have to get married, and we're not guaranteeing that you're going to get married. But so I think about that, like how are we going to let them know like everything about us in this one? So it's kind of like in this one creative. So we have to think about like what is the creative that's going to spark their interest. So in Germany, for instance, we had a campaign called Better Matches for All. And the Better Matches for All, that was the creative, was fantastic. And then from we took over the trams in Berlin, the Better Matches for All. And then what we did to bring the funnel down a little bit more is we did a guerrilla campaign. So when at restaurants and at bars and even at libraries showing, so it was just basically like, do you like libraries, or what's your favorite Thai food, or something like that connects you with that, where you are at that time. So it brings you down a little bit lower to the funnel. And then from there, we also would then use our influencer network to talk about the questions and in a fun way, know. So what I'm saying is that we'll try to take the theme from the bigger funnel and bring it all the way down. So that by the time like you'll see it, the big tram, beautiful, but then you'll get different touch points where you're able to learn more and more and more about the brand. That's one way. And I think, with online dating, it's also, it's really important to show how the product works.
Yeah.
Because, especially with OKCupid, because you do have to answer 15 questions, part of the onboarding process. So we try to find fun ways to show how the product works. So Israel, we've done a whole dating game. We've done people signing people up in real time on the streets of Tel Aviv.
Wow.
So it's like different ways that you have to show them, like, what is the brand and how does the brand work for you, and then the results through a success story.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different ways to market a dating app, which is the cool thing. Lots of different ways.
I like it.
Yeah.
Like you certainly do it in a memorable and fun way. So
yeah, that's what I think OKCupid does well. And OKCupid, because of our questions, we're able to just stay relevant. Like any question, anything going on in our world, our countries, our cities, we're able to just instantly ask the question and then keep our users engaged that way.
It makes a lot of sense. Cool. Very, very cool. I wanted to talk to you a little bit. You had I know you've done some really interesting research about in fact, Outlook 2023, and I'd love to understand how it is that you keep various generations, if you will, sort of engaged in your product and relevant to both in your product. So maybe you can share how do you do that, and I'd love to hear some of the insights that you're seeing in the dating space.
Yeah, for sure. Because we have so many questions, we're able to really get a lot of data from our users and what they're interested in, and we get to see the trends. So one of the big trends that we're seeing now is a focus on mental health. So since the pandemic, people are more willing to talk about mental health. It's not so much as a taboo anymore. And we're seeing this especially with our younger generations. And there's a stat that says, even men who mention that they are sensitive or in therapy, they get 107% more likes and 86% more matches. And we've seen the use of the term mental health increase by 18% in 2022. So we're going to see that trend just going on that trajectory in 2023. So that sort of shyness around mental health and setting your boundaries, we're seeing that now, especially with this Gen Z, just kind of break through those stigmas. And then we can tap into that through our marketing or through our relationship coach, just having those conversations about what is healthy for you, and what you will accept and what you won't accept, and that it's okay to seek a mental health services or have a bad day. And that's something that even my generation, we weren't very comfortable to talk about. And then also we're seeing that open relationships, especially for the Gen Zs, are no longer a taboo. So before, if you're dating exclusively and then having a couple other people on the side, that might have been taboo. But now with the openness and communication and the term that is, there's the term of ethical non-monogamy, where it's as long as the partners agree to see other people outside of this relationship, they're fine. And we're seeing a big mention. Those are 26% increase in just that term alone over the summer. Wow. So we're definitely seeing that trend going, that way, which is something you actually see in our marketing. Like we'll show a group of people, and it's all based off of the insights that we're seeing. And then I think one of the other most interesting trend that we're seeing is a rise in sober dating. And that was since the pandemic as well. We're seeing that 84% of singles before the pandemic said that they are okay to sober date. And now it's about 96%. Most of them are Gen Z who are looking for, who are interested in sober dating. And, there's a lot of psychology behind that, right? but it's something that's interesting. And then, you know, we'll offer them different ways to date that doesn't involve any sort of alcohol or any sort of drugs. And but Gen Z, like we were talking about yesterday, they're just a different generation. We're seeing more and more that they are willing to date in the metaverse. And we actually had our first Metaverse activation in Turkey last Pride, last June in Turkey, because Turkey the LGBTQ community is not as open as they are in other countries. So for their parade, they had the parade in the Metaverse. So OKCupid was a sponsor in the Metaverse. And we did really well. We had a lot of great press from that as well. So I think we have to really meet these users where they are.
Yes.
And that's what we plan to do in 23. Just continue listening to them and give them all the tools that they need to find each other.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'd like to go back to some of those trends and maybe dive a little bit deeper, you know, and, you know, get a sense from you, you know, how it is, you know, a little bit about, you know, what is driving, you know, that trend. So an openness around, maybe we go back and, you know, mental health in general as a society, it seems we are moving in the right direction with an openness. And it's particularly, I would say even more poignant, this openness, you know, within the Generation Z. Why do you think that is, Sonia?
I think, you know, from just what I'm seeing, you know, and even in my own family, the younger, my nieces, nephews, my younger cousins, it's they are very proud to set their boundaries and their limits, whether it's the workplace. They're very proud to share what they stand for, what they believe in. And I don't see them as shy. And I think mental health ties into that. It's about holistic, it's about wellness. And, you know, even over the years, we've seen like an increase in like yoga practices. You know, we've seen an increase in self-help, self-love, like taking time for yourself. And even like, you know, I've seen a lot of companies, especially Match Group, do a really good job of offering mental health services as part of the benefits. Yeah. So it's a trend that I'm seeing happening throughout the country, especially after the pandemic. But I see that where my generation might have been shy, I thought there was a stigma, it's actually kind of expected with the younger generation. Like if they need a break, they need a timeout, they're not afraid to say so. And it carries over into their dating life.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's certainly a lot more openness. And how are you, I think you mentioned already, you know, I'd love to hear how you said, for example, one of the things that you do is you incorporated, you have a dating coach within the app.
We have a few.
Yeah, you have, and then so you are able to incorporate it this way. Do you use that in some of your other marketing materials? You know, how do you know, how do you lean in and say, you know, and support basically? How do you, you know, embracing, you know, even further something like this and being open about it and just, you know, allowing people to express themselves as they are in that moment in their full humanity?
Yeah. We do. For instance, so in Germany, we'll partner with a local gym in Germany that offer meditation and yoga. And it was more like take a break, but it was also a singles event, you know, to kind of promote the wellness aspect, because wellness is a big category. So it's definitely a partnership that we like to use a lot, just so that we give our users that escape, and also a way to like have a nice fun date that's zen. And then also through our questions, we do ask questions, and we just keep asking questions about mental health and how people perceive it and how they feel about it, so people can continue to match on that. You know, the algorithm will continue to show those questions and match you, and then you'll be able to, like, you know, see those people who appreciate mental health the way you do as well. Yeah,
that makes sense. And I also see that, you know, you've been quite good about not just being an online brand, but you've really have made an effort to become one that exists also in the real world by, doing one of the ways that you do that is via events and partnerships. This is obviously something great. I don't know if, for example, you are also doing, I mean, obviously the metaverse is, talk about, digital, but a different kind of digital. And also, the sober dating, you also have, you have these sort of speed dating events, right, that you organize, and some of them are, in fact, sober dating, correct?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we do. I was like we were saying, actually, partnerships are one of the tools I love to use. In Israel, we are big participants in Tel Aviv Pride, and we'll partner with different brands at Tel Aviv Pride. Because I mean, the partnership also helps you leverage another brand's equity, but then also helps us to ensure that we are supporting the causes that we believe in, because we are a purpose-driven brand. So I know, and in the U.S., there's a partnership with HRC and the ACLU, and we partner with the NAACP. And like I was saying yesterday, it's not always just about dating and finding the dates. It's about allowing people to know that you're a safe space. You're a space that's all inclusive. So these are the partnerships that help us with that and to support these causes as well.
That's great. It's admirable. Yeah, it's admirable. I love what you do. Yeah, you do. And then, well, actually, one of the things that we talked about was, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but it was in these trends is that people are okay with not having very fancy or very expensive, first dates. Can you tell us a little bit about that insight and how you are, incorporating that into your marketing communication?
Yes, so this one of the trends we saw is that 40% of the people in OKCupid, like inflation is impacting their lives and this globally, and it impacts actually Gen Z the most, which I'm sure is not a surprise. But 57% of the women are more likely to spend less than $50 on a date. So we're seeing, people are finding other ways, more creative ways to have dates. So we will offer suggestions on how to, have a nice affordable date. And the pandemic actually kind of helped us with that through Zoom dates when, we all had to kind of just stay home, but you were able to find ways to have a date for almost free, whether it was to cook together. You could do like a wine tasting together from home, but now that people are out a little bit more, there's a park. You can go to the park, you can go for a walk, you can go to the museum. And we always really just kind of promote having dates that really give you the chance to get to know the person, that also gives you the opportunity to, if it's not a match, you can leave. So you don't have to have a full 6-course dinner. You can just have a nice walk in the park or a coffee or something that's not expensive, but gives you time to meet up.
Yeah, that is really, really great. I like it. Yeah, it's good to have flexibility, indeed.
It is. It really, really is. And there's just so many ways that Gen Z, they're connecting. I mean, even through video games. So gaming is something that I know I'm exploring, because gaming is starting to cross gender. So many women are gamers, so many men are gamers. And just from my own nephew watching him play, like he meets so many people through gaming. And it's like they have a community. And it's something people really bond on, like the levels they get to. I'm not a big gamer, but it's another way to like reach people and connect people is through gaming. So that's definitely one avenue that I'm really exploring for 23, is how we can tap into that market and kind of connect them into like the dating ecosystem and see where the opportunities are there for that.
It's very interesting. Also, I know you dipped your toe into the metaverse, do you, tell me about sort of plans. So that's interesting. So that's one of the things, avenues that you're looking to explore in 23. And obviously metaverse there's an overlap there within the gaming sphere, but when we look at other metaverses or other metaverse universe, is Can you maybe tell us, are you looking to maybe also, go a little further in that? Is that something for 23? What are you seeing? Is that you seeing?
It's so new, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a risk. It's a risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of resource that will be involved, like a lot of technical support, engineering support. I will say, so I know it's something I believe that we will explore, but we're definitely going to take our time with that, because it's a lot of resources. And as a smaller brand, sometimes you want to see how others are doing it a little bit first before we jump right into it. Like I was saying yesterday, our focus is still on international and trying to build our international presence of OKCupid around the world. And there's a lot of countries that we have opportunity to expand internationally. And we want to take our time to make sure we do that right. And with OKCupid, we have questions, but our questions are locally relevant. So you have a question in Israel, that's not the same question in Turkey or Germany or even in the US. So we just, we have to ensure that where we are marketing and where we have a big presence is that we stay relevant to that market. You never want a local to know that you're not local. Like for instance, I didn't realize that in Germany, Oktoberfest was not the way we perceive Oktoberfest in the US. So we always made a big deal out of it. And then comes to find out we were kind of missing the mark. So with help with our local agencies and our local teams on the ground, we're able to stay, within the culture. And just even in Turkey, we have a question in the app. Do you clap when the plane lands, right? Because some people do, some people don't. And when we translated it, it was translated, do you clap when the plane crashes? Oof. And that was, so, we're learning, and we caught that, and, we have our team now in place to make sure that everything that the translations do make sense. They don't always make sense just through a translating service. But yeah, so I think, but we definitely do want to be, in the metaverse when the time is right for us. But I think, there's a lot more for us to do in terms of just building our business internationally.
I'd love to, maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about the footprint and a little bit about, your ambitions for international, one. And then secondly, you already have, which is great. Thank you for being, open about, things. As you make your foray into new countries, there are certain missteps which we, of course, all make, and this is absolutely natural. And there are learnings, and then there are also, good practices that have served you well as you've built up your presence in the markets where you are. So maybe we can start with sort of where are you, where do you want to go, and then learnings and best practices, in terms of marketing in those and launching in those markets.
Yeah. So I think, for best practices for a dating app, I've seen PRs are really good tools when you're best friends.
Okay.
Journalists are always looking for data.
Mm-hmm.
Journalists are, people love to talk about love. People love to write about love. People love to read about love. They're interested in success stories. So we definitely focus on PR to build that word of mouth, because word of mouth in dating apps is really important. So even if you've been in a relationship for 30 years, you have a single friend, you might recommend this particular app to your friend because you saw or you read something about this app creating a connection somewhere. So we focus a lot on PR and getting press. That's what I always say for this, like a dating app, this category. And then you also just need to have a good understanding of the culture of the dating in that market. So where we are in Israel and how we market in the US, totally different. How we market in Turkey and how we market in Germany is very different. So now my focus is really just establishing a brand in Europe, because we're going to work through Germany and build the business there, and then because that has a lot of opportunity in Germany. And then once we see success there, then we can start to expand, further into other European countries. But what I do appreciate about OKCupid is we're okay with testing and learning and crawling before we walk. we are an app that's available to everybody at any point in time, you know, so you just, before you start investing, you want to make sure that you have some organic traction, but you also know a little bit more about your market. And we're able to do that quickly through direct ads. So through like Google's and Facebook's and Instagram ads, we can quickly test marketing there through those ads to see like what messaging resonates with the users there as well. And then I love a good influencer and good partnerships, you know, and I was talking yesterday about TikTok, because I feel like TikTok, what I appreciate about TikTok is it's all about the content and less about the influencer. Yes. You know, it's not, I don't have to pay $30,000 for 15 seconds. Like I can get really great content from a local, you know, everyday person who's just really funny and loves TikTok, and they're able to like capture the trends and talk about and seamlessly integrate your brand, because TikTok is very transparent if it's too overly produced. So that's, you know, another avenue that we've been really focused on, is trying to utilize TikTok for our advertising, and then also for some of the branding efforts as well.
You know, it can be a little bit scary. You talked about how the role that influencers play, particularly as we go down the funnel in the consumer journey, and it can be a little bit scary, sort of handing over your brand over to creators. It can be, and so I'm curious. You know, how do you approach, you know, your creator strategy? You know, how do you find, how do you feel well knowing that it's in good hands, if you will?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially international, because we rely on a lot of agencies, and they're not in English, like the creative at the end of the day. So then we focus on, you know, our local market managers as well. But being OKCupid, and we are a little provocative, so there's a little bit of leeway with the brand. You know, there is some leeway, so we're not like, you know, like too restricted. But I always start with a great OKCupid questions game when you work with an influencer. So we give them lots of questions. We'll have like questions, whether they're in forms of like cards to play games, or just like asking their followers to answer questions. Like I usually start there, because then I can get a feel on how they use that, how they work around that content of questions. Mm-hmm. And the fun part is we allow them to ask questions, and they even can have some of their questions entered in real time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in that regard, working with a new influencer, starting out there, usually I'm pretty comfortable with the content, because it's usually focused around the questions, and if you can get them involved and get them engaged with adding some of their own, you always get great phenomenal content.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. I see we have a Deanna coming. This means
we got a time. Oh no.
Already?
Already. We just have a couple more minutes, so if you had a last question, you can go for it.
Well, Sonia, is there anything else that you want to share, you know, about 2023? You've already shared, you know, quite a bit about what you've done and what you think, you know, awaits us. So, yeah, would love to hear, you know, anything else that you're excited about, you know, exploring for 2023, aside the things that you've already mentioned. Continue to go in deeper with TikTok, exploring gaming. Yeah.
I think for me in 23, as I'm thinking through my plans, is I want to continue to find ways to engage my users. You know, for those who are already on the app and you might feel like, oh, this is slowing down for me, how can I keep you motivated to find somebody? Because, you know, people will just get tired or they get fatigued. And we'll be honest, online dating can be tough. Dating is not easy, period. So that's what I'm thinking, like, how can I keep that encouragement going? So we can show success stories, but like, how do you get there? You know, and that's kind of like where I'm focused on, is like going a little deeper and helping those who are on the app and might be struggling, to help them find what they're looking for once you're already there.
Yeah, I want to say I'm really, as I mentioned to you yesterday, you know, about, you know, quite a long time ago, 24 years ago, having started, you know, a project around dating, dating platform. It's amazing, database.
You have to say the name. I love the name.
Database. Yeah. So I started some 24 years ago as a final project for a computer science class, one of the first sort of dating platforms about 24 years ago, called Database. And obviously at that stage, it was one of the more, very basic, the kinds of questions that, when asked. And I'm really happy to see how much success the platform and the ecosystem has been built, and particularly what OKCupid is doing by, as you said, making it a safe space and allowing people to be who they are. Yeah, it's wonderful to see that. I think I'm glad that OKCupid is around for this generations and the generations to come. So
yeah,
Sonia, I want to thank you very much for your time and your insights. So
this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. That was a great conversation. Sonia, I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing, even the mistakes with the questionnaire and the language, because I know, particularly in the European market, there's so many different cultures and languages to be aware of. And, you have to work with your local agencies and be on the ground and, and get feedback. Even if you make mistakes, then just be honest with it and just, learn from that and grow. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, Douglas and Sonia, for your time. We hope to have you back soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
You well. Ciao. Bye-bye.